You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Filmmaking Conversations with Damian Swaby. Listen to conversations with award-winning filmmakers, directors from the golden age of television, and creatives from the indie film community who continue to inspire the next generation of filmmakers. And now, over to your host, Damian Swaby.
Today we have a special guest, Leah Warshawski, an executive producer, director, impact producer, and even craft service extraordinaire. Her journey as a filmmaker took a significant leap with her first feature film, Finding HILLYWOOD. This film profiles the film industry in Rwanda and was showcased at over 70 film festivals worldwide. Lisa's most recent film documentary, Big Sonia, is a portrayal of her grandmother, a Holocaust survivor and a true national treasure. Leah's personal journey and experiences has inspired her TEDx talk, How Do We Cope with the Trauma We Didn't Experience?, and a chapter in the #1 best-selling book on Amazon, Soul Success. Leah values authenticity, loyalty, grit, and gratitude. When she's not on a plane, you can find her sitting in a patch of sunlight, dreaming of whales. Join us as we delve into her incredible journey and the stories that have shaped her remarkable career. Hi, Leah. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Anytime. Especially since I watched your first feature film, Finding HILLYWOOD. I was
Great.
really impressed.
Awesome.
And, that documentary made me want to do certain things in my own country, in London, England,
Yeah.
in terms of filmmaking and getting people on board, getting people involved, because there's lots of stories here that the world hasn't heard of or hasn't seen. So it was very inspiring for me watching Finding HILLYWOOD. But before we deep dive into that documentary, tell us, how did you get yourself started in the industry?
Well, my start in the film industry is kind of a strange one, I guess. Maybe the right place at the right time. I started working in the Marine department in college. I was living on Oahu, and at the time there were a lot of shows filming on the water, like back when Lost was filming and Baywatch. And so I actually got started in the industry in those days because I met somebody who was a Marine coordinator, and he offered me a job as his assistant. And so I really didn't know what I was doing in the film industry, but I knew a little bit about boats and ocean. And so that enabled me to work on some of those bigger shows and kind of dip my toes in the industry and see if it was something that I wanted to do more long term.
Can you tell us some of the shows that you worked on?
Well, I worked on Lost. I worked on Baywatch. I worked on a show called Hawaii. It was on NBC for a while. Unfortunately, there was only one season. And then I worked on a couple of movies. She's Not That Into You that was Jennifer Aniston.
Love that film.
Gosh. And then I worked on a episode of Alias. These are just some of the bigger ones that people might have heard of. And then tons of, I've worked on a bunch of reality shows in the last 20 years as well. So I did one in New Zealand 2 summers ago. I worked on Hoarders, which was not a claim to fame, but I worked on Naked and Afraid. So I've worked on a whole breadth of different kinds of content and shows over the years.
When you worked on Baywatch, for example, or She's Not That Into You, in what capacity did you work on these films and television shows?
Well, I was in the Marine department of IATSE 665. So when I was in my early 20s living on Oahu, there was the union, which is still here, called 665, had a Marine department. I think I was one of the first women who was actually in the Marine department. It was a new department, but it's a department centered around filming on or around the water. So anything Marine related, boats, hiring boat crew, working with water safety teams, managing crew who drives all of the boats, anything at a dock. There's a whole department for that. It's called the Marine department. And so that's really where I started. I worked with a couple of different Marine coordinators, and I was kind of helping them do their jobs as like an assistant Marine coordinator, managing boat crew, scouting locations, doing a lot of paperwork.
Wow, a lot of stuff. That sounds very, very full on. And it also sounds like your work spans a broad range of formats and genres from feature,
Absolutely. Yeah. Keeps things interesting.
it certainly does. Keeps the creative juices flowing and keeps everything interesting. So
Yeah.
how do you adapt your storytelling techniques to ensure each project's essence is captured and is uniquely authentic?
That's a good question. I mean, I think initially working on reality shows was the closest thing I could get to documentaries. And, with each project, I think there's a huge amount of trust that goes with it. And so you do need to spend the time and the effort to gain the trust of your characters, wherever they are, whoever they are, before you can really dive into any project. And that has to come from an authentic place. And so I think having done so much reality when I was younger really helped me understand how that works. And so when I do the bigger documentary projects, or really any project now, I know that there's that kind of development, research, and time that it takes in the beginning to get to know your subjects and your cast and really earn their trust in an authentic way.
Has there ever been a situation where you haven't earned the trust of someone, or there's been a difficult clash of personalities that you had to overcome?
Oh gosh, there's always, I mean, if you've worked on a reality show, there's always a clash of personalities. So absolutely, every single time there's a clash of personalities. I haven't worked on a show where there wasn't a clash of personalities, but
Oh, wow.
I think over time, and if you can remain the calm in the storm, definitely calm does win. It prevails in most cases.
True.
If you can keep your head and keep your wits and somehow find a way to keep yourself healthy and sane in the middle of it, because things will start swirling around you pretty fast. So I got a crash course in that early in my career. And yeah, just try and, I don't drink coffee anymore. So try and kind of even things out.
Yeah, I get you. I get you with that one. And you've worked in over 30 countries,
Yes,
especially in remote locations with limited resources, which is, going to set up a load of challenges for you. What is it
absolutely.
like working in these situations, and how do you overcome these challenges?
Well, I always try to hire and work with local filmmakers and people who live locally in all of the places that we go. So that's, we rely on them so much because they know the industry, they know the locations, they know the culture, they know the language. And so I do try and always hire a local coordinator, local fixer, and then, as many local crew as I can. That's a big part of what we do as a small production company. And as a producer, anytime I go to a different country, I'm always looking for folks who have either been there before, filmed there before, or folks who are already living there and working in the industry.
That's decent. That's good of you to do that, especially some of the local filmmakers I've seen once again in Finding Hillywood. That makes a lot of sense. Certainly makes a lot of sense to me.
Well,
And you're
that's how that whole project started. I mean,
mm,
I was in Rwanda filming a video for Microsoft, and we met we had hired some of those guys to work with us when I was there. And on a day off, we asked them, well, what else do you guys do when there's no work here? And they said, well, we just really want to work. So that's how Finding Hillywood actually started, as we had hired local crew for a Microsoft video in East Africa and started talking to those guys about what they do when they're not working in the film industry and when there's no work. And they just said, we really want to work. And oh, by the way, we have this film festival every year called the Hillywood Film Festival. And that idea was so intriguing that we came back. And so you just never know what's going to come of all of these adventures and travels. And, I was filming a corporate job but ended up starting a documentary project because of it.
Brilliant. Can you give us a log line for Finding Hillywood?
Finding Hillywood is about the power of film to heal. So in the middle of the jungle in East Africa, every year filmmakers take local films in their own language, Kenya, Rwanda, around the countryside and screen them for people who've never seen a movie before, let alone a movie in their own language.
Excellent. And it is worth watching. I can seriously say that. It was very nice hearing female filmmakers as well in the documentaries talk about what filmmaking meant to them and how they enjoyed being filmmakers. When one lady said she would be very honest to young filmmakers, young female filmmakers who said they want to get in the industry, I thought that was really good. I won't give the spoiler away, but it's nice that someone who can love film as much as she did, who went out and made her film, could be honest on camera, which is important, I think, for young filmmakers who want to make their way in the industry.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for watching.
So what motivated you in particular to tell this story?
Well, I was young and naive and I'd never made a documentary before. So I thought, why not try something hard for the first one? I don't know. I think looking back on it now, it was kind of crazy because I was living in Seattle at the time. And so East Africa was almost the furthest place that I could have chosen to make a documentary with no money. But I just I attended one of the screenings for the HILLYWOOD Film Festival. And I remember like sitting on the top of a van in the middle of Rwanda watching a movie on a big inflatable movie screen. And there were, 3,000 people around watching. And you could, there's volcanoes in the distance and you can kind of see like a really dim glow and the stars were out. And it was just a magical experience being there in that. And I thought, well, this is enough to carry me. This idea and this passion and this story is enough to get started. And I was so passionate about it that I just jumped in and I didn't really know any better, which is probably a good thing because it was so difficult to raise money. And we ended up doing crowdfunding and we did all the things, but it was definitely a challenge for my first film, without a doubt.
So approaching the people in the film, how does that come about? Because as far as I can see, they were very open and very nice people, but sometimes there's always kind of challenges or there's always different ways to approach people to participate in a movie. How did that work out for you?
Well, Ayub, our main character, was our fixer when I had gone for the corporate work. So we knew him a little bit. And we knew that he was the man in charge of the HILLYWOOD Film Festival. So we knew we wanted to spend more time with him. And as we spent time with him, it was clear that he was a really unique character and that we were going to focus the film around him. We didn't actually know his full story. Again, it's because it takes a while to become, to earn trust. And so it was a couple of years before we even knew what had happened to his family during the genocide. Which became, a thread in our film. And that didn't happen until we thought we were done making the film. So Ayub became a close friend and collaborator. And then the other filmmakers who we profiled were folks who Ayub knew, people that we had met just being involved with the Rwanda Film Center, and Eric Cabera, who runs that. Todd and I went over and had, led a filmmaking workshop at one point. And so we just met a lot of filmmakers and talked to them and heard about what they were doing and who was making films. And we knew we needed a woman for sure to be involved. Yeah. And so Nicole ended up, kind of rising to the top. And we were looking for folks who were actively making films in the industry.
And how did they feel about the documentary once they saw it? Because I imagine they were quite proud of themselves.
Yeah, they were proud. It was fun to go back and screen the film at the HILLYWOOD Film Festival and the Rwanda Film Festival. And we still keep in touch with a lot of folks there, especially the people who are in our film. But like everybody, they need funding in order to keep
Mm.
that festival going. And so I actually don't know if the Hillywood component is able to operate anymore. They've just always had a struggle making it happen, which is pretty sad.
That is sad. I could imagine. And obviously, I don't know anything about Rwanda really, but I guess there isn't that much government participation in terms of helping to fund the film festival.
Oh gosh, I mean, that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, just like most governments, things are complicated.
Yeah,
And
true.
there's a Ministry of Sports and Culture that permits the festival. I don't know how much funding there actually is for it. And it's not a big international draw. So it's just hard. Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
hard.
Off the back of that documentary, I wasn't surprised to read that your company motto is work hard, play hard, give back.
Yes.
That is spot on. And I think it's so appropriate considering watching Finding Hillywood.
Oh,
But
thank you.
that motto really shines through in your projects and as you as a person. Can you discuss how this philosophy influences the projects you choose and the way you structure your work environment?
Well, I mean, it really did start with Finding Hillywood in terms of wanting the projects that we take on to not only be seen by the biggest audience possible, but to actually make a positive impact in the world, to leave something as a legacy that's not just a film, but maybe a social impact project or something that is going to help the communities that we film in after we leave. So I've worked on some big reality shows that go into a country, build a whole infrastructure, hire locals, and then they leave and they have to burn everything down because they can't keep up the structures legally. And then people that they hired have no work again. And it's almost like we leave it worse than when we got there. And so we try to make sure as a company that we're making, the smallest footprint that we can, but also making the biggest impact that we can when we have the opportunity to with each project. And so we're looking at ways to foster education and resilience and mentorship. And it's always top of mind. The
Yeah.
impact is always top of mind now. And that started with Finding Hillywood.
So what does play hard mean to you at that motto?
Well, that's sanity. So we mountain bike, we snowboard, we try to surf. It's something I want to get back into. We travel all over the world. I'm, mildly obsessed with humpback whales. And so we do
Oh,
go to countries where it's legal to swim with humpbacks and try to go on, adventures and stay healthy so that we can move our bodies and do this for as long as we possibly can.
sounds like great stuff for me. Humpback world and surfing. Wow, very adventurous. And you clearly work hard, that's for sure. But giving back, where does that come from? Because it sounds like that's a personal belief you have. Where do you think that comes from in you?
That's a good question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that before. I guess, I've always known and felt that I have it pretty good.
Okay.
I've traveled all over the world and I've had experiences, pretty extreme experiences already. And I'm not 50 yet, but hopefully I have a long way to go. But I've had some pretty intense, extreme experiences all over the world. And I've seen how a lot of people live. I've experienced a lot of different cultures, and I feel really lucky and grateful for what I have. And so I've always felt a sense of wanting to be able to help other people when I can, and even just having kind of empathy and compassion for where people are at, because I feel like everybody is going through something. And the more you can empathize with that and be compassionate and kind of put yourself in somebody else's shoes, the more it makes me feel like I want to give as much as I can. Giving feels really good. to me. Selfishly, it feels amazing to be able to help other people, and especially share experiences. If it's going to save somebody else trouble by me sharing my experience, maybe somebody else has an easier time going through what they have to go through. So it's also a part of kind of my culture and heritage and where I came from. A lot of my family, my grandparents and great grandparents were Holocaust survivors. And so I grew up with kind of a sense and a feeling that everything could go away at any minute.
Yeah.
And to just be very grateful for what we have.
And the whole empathy and understanding and giving back is a feeling I got from you when I watched your TED talk in the chapter in Soul Success, addressing coping with secondhand trauma through storytelling. Could you elaborate on the therapeutic potential of filmmaking, both for creators and viewers?
Well, I think when you can make a film that resonates with people and causes people to think about their own struggles and their own challenges, but by sharing examples of resilience through film, which is, I think, what we do as a company. And we always say we like to profile wounded healers, people who've been through their own challenges to get where they're at today. All of our main characters for the biggest films we've made are wounded healers, ironically. And so we're really drawn to those kinds of people, those kinds of characters. And when you are sitting in a theater watching the story about somebody who's been through something horrific and has come out on the other side, it really inspires you to think about your own life and figure out how to get through whatever you're going through. And you see a shining example of resilience, and it inspires a lot of people. And to be able to do that in the work that we do and sit in the theater and watch the transformation is really powerful and highly addictive.
It certainly is. And talking of films being powerful and documentaries that could be addictive, can you tell us a bit about Big Sonia?
Well, Sonia's my grandmother. She's 90. She'll be 99 this year. We started film. Yeah, it's amazing. We never thought we'd get this far, but she's still going. We started filming with her when she was 84, and we had just come off of making Finding Hillywood. And so we thought, let's make a short film as a break from a feature. And so we started filming with Sonia, and the short film turned into a long film, and the long film turned into a 93-minute feature. By the time we were done, Sonia was able to experience the premiere with us, which was really special. And the whole time we were making the film, we thought, man, I hope she's still around when we're done, because we want her to, how many 90-year-old women, have a film made about them. So she did get to experience that. And it's a film about my family, but it actually resonates with almost everybody who watches it, because there are elements of family that people don't talk about. There are things that are secrets. There are things that are difficult. And by my family, sharing some of their experiences, I think it's helped a lot of other people. So even though, Sonia is a Holocaust survivor, the film is not just about the Holocaust. It's actually about family trauma and how to get through that.
It's such a sensitive topic, that you've been a Holocaust survivor. How did you confront making the film with a Holocaust survivor who's also your grandmother? Because the emotional connections to the subject matter and the personal connections must lie pretty deep.
Well, when I started making the film, I hadn't really spent that much time with Sonia growing up. We didn't live in the same place. And so making the film with her was the most time that I've ever spent with her. And Sonia is the kind of person that actually is kind of obsessed with talking about her experience. Not every survivor does talk about it, but she had started going around to schools and prisons and different places to tell her story as a witness. And so she loves talking which for us as filmmakers was very fortunate.
Brilliant.
And so we started there, and she loves being on camera, and we're grateful for that. So we got lucky there. But, throughout the course of making the film, we did learn a lot that I didn't know about other members of my family, and even some parts of Sonia's story that she hadn't shared with us before.
So when you learn a lot about other stories that haven't been shared before, how does that make you feel about some of your family members, and how do they resonate with the film when they watched it?
Well, it's really difficult for them. I think for me as a filmmaker and a producer, I was just kind of plowing through it because I had a job to do and needed to get the film done. So that gave me an excuse to really not deal with the emotional side of it and just keep going and make the best film that we could make. It wasn't really until after the film was done and I'd been on the road already for 2 years screening it that I started kind of feeling the effects of all of the heaviness and all of the emotion of it. But for a long time, I was just making the film. And it's difficult. It's difficult now for the family to watch it still. There's some pretty difficult scenes in there, but also its legacy. And it's, it's actually playing every week at Sonia's local movie theater right now.
Wow.
And so she gets to tell people, to go and see her movie every week.
Yeah.
And there's huge legacy in that. And we're really, really proud, but it's difficult. It wasn't an easy project.
Before we wrap up, I want to take a moment to reflect on the inspiring journey we've explored today. Our guest shared how her company creates films that resonate deeply with audiences, encouraging viewers to think about their own struggles and challenges. By profiling wounded healers, individuals who have come through significant hardships, these films highlight resilience and inspire hope. Hearing about the making of Big Sonia was especially moving. The documentary about Leah's grandmother, a 99-year-old Holocaust survivor, illustrates the power of storytelling to connect generations and heal family trauma. Despite the personal challenges of making such a film, it has become a powerful legacy piece, touching audiences far and wide. One key takeaway from today's discussion is the power of storytelling and its ability to heal and unite communities. As amplified by the HILLYWOOD Film Festival in East Africa, films have the potential to bring joy, understanding, and connection to people who have never seen a movie, let alone one in their own language. Thank you for joining me today. If you enjoy this episode, please leave a review and share it with your friends. Stay tuned for more fascinating stories and insightful conversations in our next episode. Until next time, filmmaking conversations where clarity meets creativity.